Marcosatsu.
What's the first genre you would think of if I brought up tokusatsu video games? Something in the fighting genre would be easy, or adjacent ones like beat-em-ups. There are plenty of either. But let's specify that. What kind of game would Kamen Rider have? The adventure genre sounds like a good fit. Ultraman could easily have a fighting game too. Although, some of the most memorable games are those you'd never expect. Seigi no Keifu is a Kamen Rider game more in the style of Resident Evil, where the focus is on puzzles. Ultraman has a Monster Rancher spin-off of all things, having you raise Ultra Kaiju and pit them against each other. Then when it comes to Super Sentai, they were all over the place. Platformers, arcade beat-em-ups, dungeon crawlers, and traditional puzzle games? Much like the series itself, Sentai games experiment every so often, and while they're not exactly terrible, it makes me long for something bigger. Luckily, if there's one game that has been recommended to me for years due to my interest in tokusatsu, it would be Chroma Squad.
I've heard of the game plenty of times, even way before I got the countless recommendations, and it did seem like a neat idea.
Growing up with Power Rangers, I was used to the platformer beat-em-up genres, since I played Mighty Morphin and Time Force on Game Boy basically non-stop. Kinda makes me want to make a let's play of them. So when Chroma Squad came around, I was interested in how it was taking on something new, that being tactical or SRPGs.
Okay, it's not entirely new since the last Hero games and Superhero Generations did have a similar idea for the most part, but those are more crossovers rather than focusing on one side of tokusatsu, just like Super Sentai and Power Rangers.
The developers, Behold Studios, have made a couple of games I've heard of before. Out of Space and Galaxy of Pen and Paper look fun. You'll probably notice the developers have this classic pixel art style.
While I'm a sucker for beautiful, realistic graphics, I also don't mind the pixel art because there is a lot of work that gets put into this. But for now, let's actually get into the game.
Look at that shiny title screen with a very cool theme song. With an equally as cool trailer. I'm a busy guy, so I do like playing games on easy mode, but we'll go with normal or interesting in this case. Our story begins with our team of stuntmen casually committing murder and getting constant demands from their director. So the stuntmen set out to form their own studio. The game is overall silly and very meta, to a fault, but more on that later. And now we build our Sentai. You can already see the Toku tropes coming out with the Blue Ranger being the techie and such. The default team is set to be pretty optimized for their suit color, though you have a wider range of characters. Here are a couple of Kickstarter backers, trained athletes, a robot who only follows 2 of Asimov's laws, a beaver, and an alien. The choices are fun, and you don't have to stick to the classic team colors.
If I had my own Sentai team, I would definitely love to have the Sun Vulcan colors, red, blue, and yellow, plus a black and white ranger in the same team for no other reason other than I just think it would be really cool. I think the Kyoryuger's 100 Years After movie had a neat idea when it came to having different colors for the core team, but that's a whole other topic. I'm getting offhand.
Introducing Ice Sentai Mochiman, Hawkillies, Thomas Jujubee, myself, Keza Henshin, and Squish.
Thinking about it now, I probably should have made Kaza yellow and myself green because those are our favorite colors. And I was originally gonna name everything after my plushie, frog plushie Squish, but I actually had something more wholesome in mind.
Pepper. That's Pepper. Mochi. Mochi. Emochi. Go forth, Ice Sentai Mochiman.
I'm no stranger to tactical RPGs because Fire Emblem is one of my favorite game series just of all time. Face wasn't that bad. And I've also played a lot of XCOM and Final Fantasy Tactics back in the day. So a lot of that did help out when playing through Chroma Squad.
Chroma Squad isn't all that complex, at least on normal difficulty. The abilities of each ranger are straightforward and you only get a handful total, gaining a new one each season. You have your expected rangers with the class type that they specialize in, and the game focuses on those specialties. I try not to have my assist healer in combat too often, or else I'd be in a difficult spot. As long as you have at least 2 rangers, you can use teamwork to get closer to an enemy, or team up for a special attack. You don't want to lose any rangers at all, or else you can't do your cool finishing move.
The gameplay is straightforward and fun. There's no issues or complaints there. But outside of that...
Well, there's a shop, but I don't think there's that much to buy, since you'd easily just go with the next best stats. Though I'd say that's more of a negative for the bigger picture to me. On the surface, there seems to be a lot to take in when out of combat. Studio upgrades, marketing, a crafting system, ugh. Unless it's Minecraft, but I'm just not the biggest fan of it. Main point, it may appear like there's a lot on the surface, but I never found myself really using them until near the end game. That may just be a normal mode thing, though I feel like normal should be the most balanced point, you know? And I promise, this is only one of 2 big gripes I have about the game. Still, it's simple enough. No level ups, no overly complex mechanics, just your team and some flashy attacks.
Mario & Rabbids is the simplest tactical RPG I've ever played, and Chroma Squad I'd say is like a step above that.
If you haven't played a turn-based tactics game or really have no interest, but you love Tokusatsu, then I think this is an easy entry point. After all, you get a giant mecha. So that's the gameplay for now. What if you're like me and are more interested in the Toku aspect? The Sentai tropes you love are all here. The transformation sequence is flashy, they shout their names with dramatic posing, the music is so cheesily Sentai, I won't bring it up, but the soundtrack is so good. And that goes with the sound effects in general, just an 8-bit. Punching a mook has great impact, exactly what I want from a Toku game. This one level has a ton of references too, including the actual Sentai logo. Wait, is that Mazinger? Vulcan Skull? Yeah man, this is Tokusatsu. Which makes me question why Saban's name is put under here when this is overall Tokusatsu and not just Power Rangers. Heck, it's more Sentai than Power Rangers, but that is a rant for a different time. You don't need me to tell you that there is a lot of love poured into the game. It's like this was made by fans, for fans. Which makes me really excited about the upcoming Magical Girl game. And for Chroma Squad, it's not just visually. If we dive deeper into the story, then you get the real feel of a Saturday or Sunday morning Tokusatsu. Characters spout their lines while doing their exaggerated poses, and it's just great. At first.
As I always say, humor is subjective, but the meta commentary can get old really fast. I can take, hey, you're getting off script, only so many times.
Much like the Tokusatsu we love, the story isn't super deep or anything, both in and out of suit. The studio story is a lot of fun though. Our team finds a brain in a jar called Cerebro, which points them towards the villain of the week, but maybe there's a secret Cerebro is hiding. The game has a few endings that branch off from a couple of choices, and I do mean a couple of choices. I won't say what those are just yet.
Instead, let me stop here. If any of this interested you at all, for any reason, even slightly, I highly recommend picking it up. Or maybe you already have, because Chroma Squad does go on sale pretty often and for pretty cheap. And even though the game hasn't really been my thing up to this point, the next part I'm going to bring up is one of my favorite portions of a tactics game I've ever played.
This might sound weird for a game with a straightforward story, but I'm gonna put a spoiler warning here. If you know Tokusatsu, these might not surprise you at all, though I'd still think they're worth going in blindly for. Head to the timestamp on screen if you want to skip this part, so with that said, let's get into it in 3, 2, 1. After accepting a sponsor in Chapter 3, your lead ranger starts to act differently, like they want everything their own way. Near the end of that chapter, it turns out your lead was brainwashed by one of your sponsors, named Gaga, who turned out to be a real alien, so now the stunt team of a fake show has to fight real monsters. Strange twist, but alright. Upon rescuing your first group of civilians, you come across a cool lady named Tammy. Then the branch comes in a battle between Gaga and the zombified Tammy. Defeat Gaga and your story will have a 6th ranger join your team. Defeat Tammy and you'll enter the Night Driver route.
As I mentioned, Chroma Squad wasn't really my thing, and I can't give an exact reason why. It just didn't grab me. I did stream the game in the past, and I got so bored I stopped after like a couple hours every time. But once I reached this route, I finally understood it.
Yeah, Night Driver is basically the Kamen Rider of this game. The rest of your team gets kidnapped, so it's up to a single ranger to take on the mantle of Night Driver. Tammy's father, Kanji Abo, thanks you for rescuing her, and after a battle, he reveals he was the previous Night Driver, then he passes it on to you.
This is the route people wanted me to get to. I wasn't exactly enjoying the game, really, so I kept my expectations really, really low. But the Night Driver route, it's everything I wanted, gameplay, and most importantly, story-wise.
To me, the story prior to Night Driver was quote-unquote generally Sentai, or Sentai in name only. There's nothing wrong with that since Chroma Squad was doing its own thing, and I know there were plenty who enjoyed it enough, but Night Driver is basically a new Kamen Rider season. The tragedy, the single hero having to rise to the occasion, and most importantly, the tone. It's exactly what I loved about the route, but the gameplay added so much more. Ironic since you have 4 less people to play as. I think having a singular character goes along with a little more strategy. If one ranger went down, then at least you had 4 more. If Night Driver goes down, then you don't have that safety net. They're also given a few new abilities, which add to the strategy, along with the enemies being more involved? Past monsters could move your rangers with enough punches, but that was basically as far as it went. The first boss in this route has an attack that forces you to watch your spacing, which alone is more than I had to think about with a full team. I don't want to give away everything, so I'll stop there, but man, I loved Night Driver. It almost made me wish the entire game was like that.
Overall, Chroma Squad isn't a bad game. I hope I hammer that home. Like, it's not a bad game. I'm sure you would enjoy it. I got countless comments saying that they love Chroma Squad. It just didn't grab me for like 90% of it, but I don't regret my time playing it. In fact, I think all that time really helped me just enjoy the Night Rider route even more. But still, I really recommend you play it. It is a love letter to Tokusatsu, just like Dawn of the Monsters, both said in different ways. And this game is just beautiful. It is made for Tokusatsu fans, and I really hope you enjoy it.
Hey, thanks for watching the video. I don't have much to say other than I hope you really enjoyed it because I have plenty of other Tokusatsu video games to talk about, especially the Kamen Rider ones. So until then, I'll see you next time.